They were great at first stand. They showed that they could take down both, the LPL, the LTA, as well as the LEC. They won series against them all there. Of course, they did then lose to K-Corp in that best of 5 later on, but they have been a real threat. They almost took down T1. That series was also very close, won all 5 games. So I don't think that MKOI should be walking into this thinking it's going to be a breeze, but I do think it is definitely a matchup that they can win and should still be favored in.
Yeah, I think over the history of League of Legends, it has been pretty EU favored, 23-9 if you include Vietnam in the APAC region across the course of all of League of Legends, all of LoL Esports history. We're into draft for game 1. Maokai and Varus taken away by CFO on the blue side. Pantheon and Jax removed by MKOI.
Yeah, it is interesting to see both Taliyah as well as TF up and available. Taliyah, champion that has been getting banned out very consistently, but I do think Pantheon is starting to get more and more attention. Obviously, it is one of these global champions. They are really powerful in the meta currently, but Pantheon has been looking pretty incredible in most of the games it has been coming out on. So Vi is going to be banned out. Does mean that either Taliyah or TF are going to be up and available. Of course, they're not a guaranteed first pick, but I think if Taliyah is up, it would go through for sure. Taliyah is going to be banned.
MKOI agreeing with you.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the Taliyah, at least in game 1. Azir is then kind of the mid laner that rises in priority when you think about it. Taliyah often used as a counter to the Azir, at least someone that can contain him a little bit in the early laning phase. Locked in now for CFO.
Really interested to see where Jojo wants to go. Jojo for me, is a player who's always been so good at those melee champions. Yone is up and available. I would really like a Yone Sejuani, that kind of one too. Of course, there are many different options that you can go into Azir. I don't think the Mel's going to get locked, but these long-range poke champions can be pretty popular into Azir as well. But to me, Yone, Sejuani, it fits the bill. It's the kind of style that Jojo wants to play and is so good at. Always in his time in NA, I really did think of him as a melee mid lane specialist. That to me was his biggest strength. Yes, he is a great laner on range champions too, but I think this is his bread and butter. This is how he can really be a game changer. And we'll see if we do get that Sejuani as well, which I think could work well with Merwin, because Merwin is one of these guys who is so flexible, can bring out counter picks. You're on red side, and you could go for one of those double melee setups on the top side.
Yeah, you get good scaling in the Yone. Rumble is actually going to be a pick here for Merwin in that top side, so leaving the jungler for later on. Sejuani obviously does really fit with these two champs, but if you don't get the Sejuani, you get something like the Jarvan instead, or something with a bit of utility. I agree, I want Sejuani, but if it's picked by CFO, unfortunately, MKOI can no longer pick it.
That's true.
So Rumble, Yone locked in for MKOI. CFO looking towards their jungler and likely their top laner on this rotation, just to answer into that Rumble. Often we've seen the Galio as that top lane answer.
Yeah, I think Poppy could be a solid answer, but Xin Zhao is going to be the pick here for Jinja. Has been very good on it, and it's just such a popular pro play jungler here. Has a lot of early game power, can scale pretty well with the Crescent Guard into the later stages of the game also. And yeah, wouldn't be surprised at all to see just that Galio coming out. It is really popular as an answer. Instead, it is going to be Sion here for Driver. One of his most played, tied for most with the Gragas, so definitely looking towards scaling. Already we're seeing two very different styles of composition. CFO are going to be playing front-to-back team fight, where we're going to be seeing on the other side, it's going to be about dive. And I do actually like the pivot towards Trundle, so delaying that jungle pick towards 3, I do think paid some dividends. Sejuani, obviously really strong pairing, but when you do see a super tank on the other side, Trundle becomes a tank himself and is really helping to shred through, which I think is super important, especially when you are playing these double melee top sides, where sometimes you're a little bit light in your composition on tank damage. So Trundle can kind of bridge that gap, and I really like what we're seeing here in the first 3. Honestly, from both sides, it's just 2 different styles.
Yeah, CFO, sorry, obviously going for a little bit more teamfight threat. They have their front line right now. The Crescent Guard for Xin Zhao as well. It gives you a huge amount of area control when you get into teamfights. MKOI will be looking to bypass that area control by just getting onto the backline with an Equalizer, with a Fate Sealed, diving in. Wouldn't be surprised if they look towards something like a Kai'Sa as well for Super, just to facilitate that dive overall. Braum banned away by MKOI, MF taken out by CFO.
Yeah, the 3 that I always think of as kind of facilitating dive is MF, Jhin, and the Kai'Sa, because Jhin, obviously, you just open up, you create that chaos when the Rumble Equalizer comes down, and I do think some of these kind of defensive supports do really make a lot of sense to be getting banned out. Braum as well as Rakan, champions that have that ability to protect the backline, that ability to kind of turn fights around and really are tough to actually fight through, does make a lot of sense here. And we'll see if it is going to be something like a Kai'Sa or a Jhin ban, because I think those 2 are the ones that kind of I have my eyes on right now for Supa.
I'll also say, if I'm CFO and I've done my research on Super, he plays a lot more Kai'Sa than he does Jhin. He's got one Jhin game this entire split. He is still solid on it, but Jhin in EU is not often seen as too good of a pick. They have. They banned out the Kai'Sa instead. I would still like the Jhin from MKOI. Leave your support counter pick for last. It looks like at the moment, though, they're going for a little bit of disengage with their support alongside some follow-up engage if that Alistar wants to get into the middle of the fights.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that getting locked in here. You know, Alistar, obviously, you know, very popular. Alvaro, I think, was incredible on it, you know, when we saw him the other day. Even in a loss, which I think is honestly really rare when you are playing these hard engage style champions and your team is behind. Often you look bad because every fight is going to be bad because you're so far down in goal. But he was really able to make things work, you know, to be able to find angles that really were giving the team opportunities to come back in some of those games. And it's going to be Ezreal, so lots of scaling here on the CFO side. I do think we are going to get an engage support because they are lacking some hard engage here. You know, I'm thinking Leona or something along those lines. You obviously maybe are a little bit more hesitant to go towards Rel because that is kind of that common counter. Yeah. But I do think something like Leona could fit the bill here still, and is going to be comfort for Kaiwing.
This is most played across the course of the split. Currently hovering over the Galio, though, would go into that supporting role. But yeah, Leona is going to be the lock in the end. Keep the Galio up for later on in the Fearless Best of 5. And we'll see where MKOI decides to go with their AD carry now. Super, a little bit further down his pecking order, but Sivir is going to be the lock. Good wave clear, can do a lot of damage as well from range because of the ricochet during team fights. Yeah,
obviously a different style of kind of assisting in those fights, you know, than something like the Jhin that I was more anticipating. But obviously pop the...
Here looking to change the history books as we make our way out onto Summoner's Rift.
You know, I've said this before. We were talking about, you know, the European teams that were qualifying on the dive, and for me, it's been kind of fun watching MKOI because I do feel like I have a European team that now I feel a little bit more of an attachment to, a little bit more like I'm kind of cheering. I have a home team away from home here. Obviously, always going to be cheering for the LCA teams, but it's been fun to see Jojopian go over and to see his growth, you know, especially coming into the second split, looking a lot stronger with the team, you know, was really able to step up in playoffs, and they're going to have a tough challenge here as they're going up against CFO, who did look quite good at first, and yeah, in the group stage, they did lose to HLE, but guess what? Everyone did at that entire tournament, got absolutely blasted by them. And they did have a very close series against K-Corp in the knockout stage.
They did. For CFO, again, it's the first year this roster has been together as a whole, and I think seeing the progression from tournament to tournament is what you really want from CFO. You've got people like Driver, who is in for this game, Rest, obviously, who's on the bench for this game, Hongq as well, the next hope of the APAC region, following the footsteps of people like Maple, who for so long were known as the LCK killers. You know, you look back to Flash Wolves, you look to PSG. For so long, this region has been a region that, although not coming in as favorites, would often be able to challenge on the world stage.
Absolutely. I mean, they were always kind of some of those dark horse teams that could find ways to make upsets happen. Is not quite able to connect the Zenith Blade. Kaiwing trying to get pretty aggressive there, you know, sweeping out that early ward, trying to play in the face here of Supa, but Supa's been able to avoid all the damage and has hit a couple of boomerang blades, so Doggo is the one kind of taking the bad end of this.
Yeah, puts a bit of damage back. Kaiwing did take the Oracle's alteration here, that sweeper early to deny vision in the bush. He lands a Zenith Blade, but Supa trades back on him. Aftershock keeping Kaiwing a little bit healthier. Jojopian feeling the pain of a ranged into melee matchup in the mid lane, very similarly to the last time we saw him play this Yone here at MSI.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just going to be about trying to preserve your life total to be able to farm the wave when it's in a decent spot. And you kind of have to really know in these matchups, okay, what minions do I actually have to give up? What minions can I fight for? Because if you try to fight for every minion, you will just lose way too much health and you'll actually get way less CS as a result. So you have to really decide which ones are too dangerous to go for. Of course, he is going to be playing Fleet Footwork. He's going to be playing Second Wind. He has a D shield, so he is as defensive as you can get and has held onto this potion. But of course, also as you get level 3, it gets a lot more easy to trade back. This is considered a matchup that is pretty Yone favored as you start getting more levels, as you start getting more items, because it gets very difficult for Azir, you know, when you just go in with your E, go for the soul inbound, you just start taking these trades, and Azir's only real recourse post 6 becomes ult you away, but then you just snap back, and now all of a sudden you don't have that for the next trade.
And you have your own Fate Seal to follow up, even if the gap is widened by Hongq on that Azir. Meanwhile in the top lane, but the lane is just trading. Driver will be pushed in early by this Rumble, kind of to be expected. Driver, the tank player for CFO. He and Rest kind of switch duties in the top lane, often Rest coming in for the second game of the series.
Yeah, and they have been very active in how they were actually swapping back and forth, but interestingly enough, it wasn't actually Driver that did play the tank in that final game against T1.
Jinja's looking for a gank down towards this bottom side. Alvaro does have the Aftershock on. When Becomes Lightning is going to connect, but not too much more going on there. Jojo dashes onto Hongq, but doesn't connect with the Q3, and so Hongq will just be able to walk away.
Yep, Jojo, though, going to be pretty happy about how things have gone. Obviously, the first couple levels, he got pretty low in HP, but he has been able to trade back very consistently, going in with the Soul Unbound, and should be able to actually reset this wave. So I think Jojo going to be really happy about how this kind of first laning phase has gone thus far. A couple more minions will be there for Hongq to pick up, but we're dead even right now at the time that Jojo is basing. You are laughing if that's how it's going.
Very happy with how this early sequence has gone. He jumps onto Hongq as well, just to try and stop him from being able to freeze this wave. The stop is back quite late, though, so it's about 6-7 seconds of time wasted there for Jojo.
It is, that's the con, but the pro is that Hongq TP'd back and is now half HP, right? So if you can actually get in a good trade after your opponent TP's back, but before you base, you then come back, now you're in full health, so now Hongq is going to be in an awkward spot. He has no potions, and I do think that Jojo is going to have an opportunity to potentially lane lock him here, where you are going to have to take a maybe really bad base.
It is going to be tricky for Hongq. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jinja and Kaiwing just coming towards that mid lane to make sure they get a push out. Especially we're seeing so many swaps around the 3 to 6 minute mark from these bot lanes. You can put the Rumble behind as well. Driver's doing a good job against Mirwin in that top side, but if you have a little bit of time in a 2v1 into the Rumble, Sion deals with that a lot better than the Rumble ever will.
Absolutely. I mean, both these guys getting very, very low, but Hongq has got to be careful. Jinja is around, and that ward will critically spot him for Jojo. You can see Hongq realizes, you know what, I'm getting so low, and there's a potential dive.
Flash away from Mirwin. Survives through the unstoppable onslaught. Driver's going to eat a flame spitter on the backside, but it's a summoner for an ultimate exchange in favor of CFO.
Yeah, really nicely done. Driver's actually opened up a pretty big CS advantage as well, which you're not expecting to happen early on in this matchup. Mirwin is just going to use the ulti on the wave, so we'll see if Driver does stay around. He has not yet based, so he's just going to stay around, collect the wave, but he is going to be up 2 full waves pretty much here in the early levels, which is a bit concerning. I will say, though, it's not as big of a deal to be falling a little bit behind when you do at least have different damage types here from your soul laners, because yes, you're going to have to be building MR against the Rumble, but then you can put Jojo in the side lane against him later on. He does some magic damage, but obviously is massively physical, and is going to make it a lot more difficult to itemize for Driver, who's actually going for a really interesting build. He's actually just trying to slam him in the 1v1. He's going Swifties.
Not for the Swifties, but then teleports back here while Mirwin's going down towards the bottom side. No unstoppable onslaught, does have the flash. The trample looking for the stun here from Alvaro as Super begins to open up. Driver's still very healthy, even though he hasn't built any health, just because he's Sion, and he will be able to walk away. Half HP though, and with Elioya on this side of the map, things could get tricky for Driver.
Yeah, I think he's going to be regretting the buy now. You go Swifties to obviously be able to shrug off some of the slows coming through from the Electro Harpoons and to really be able to punish, but they could easily dive this, I think. I think he has pretty much no chance to get out.
Early subjugate possible from Elioya. There it goes as they look for Driver under the tower. No escape. Alvaro tanks it perfectly, and MKOI on the board.
Nicely done by MKOI. They really punished Driver. Over-aggressive on the teleport. He didn't have to actually TP on the wave there. He could have waited. Obviously you have to know the lane swap is possible, and in those situations, you're going to get punished TPing like that. Had he TP'd straight to the tower, been at full health, that dive is going to be at the very least much more difficult to pull off. But MKOI able to punish. They get Mirwin out of what was a difficult 1v1 and are able to get the first kill on the board.
CFO doing well on the other side of the map, though, denying Mirwin any of the farm. Mirwin did back all the way away, not actually even trying to step up to the tower, knowing that he was undermanned on this side of the map. But you can see about a 20 CS lead for Driver in that top side. Even a lead for Doggo on the AD carries, at least in terms of farm, although he is about 150 gold behind because of that first blood from Super.
Yeah, absolutely true. I do think mid lane, though, going very well for MKOI. Of course, it is not a big CS advantage by any means, but the Azir is going to start to struggle, and CFO are going to move their bot lane over towards mid here. I think they want to be in the area for the grubs. They're going to send Azir down to bot. He will not have teleport, but neither... Well, actually, Mirwin does. Jojo's not going to be the one to answer, so MKOI will have the potential extra man if Mirwin can look for a TP angle, and we'll see if they even want to fight this, because they are a little bit late to show up, and it's going down pretty quick.
Yeah, first grub already gone here for Jinja. Alvaro and Super trying to come across. Driver is there to defend, as are Kaiwing and Doggo. Elioya on the red buff right now. Super was looking for the steal with the Boomerang Blade, but can't find it. CFO seem to be happy with just getting the objective, the feat of the neutral objectives there from the Grubs. We'll leave one left up.
Honestly, nice bluff by the MKOI bot lane. They kind of just walked forward, and I feel like CFO was respecting a little bit too much. They don't know that Elioya is still on the red buff. They're just assuming, oh, well, if you're walking forward, the rest of your team is here. They didn't want to try to force any sort of fight. Junja had already used his smite, of course, so didn't want to just stay around, have that stolen away. But at the end of the day, it is going to be, as you say, that objective feat is going to be taken, but not going to be able to get the Void Might spawn, which is always really nice to be able to add in.
It does mean CFO are only one objective away from having that objective feat complete. Obviously, yet to pick up any kills. MKOI currently sitting on 1. Kaiwin looking for Mirwin, will land the Shield of Daybreak, but with much ado about nothing as Mirwin can just walk away from that one. Doggo obviously very safe as well in this mid lane to farm up. Doesn't have the push that a Sivir will have with the Ricochet, but is able just to farm from range if it's ever in a tricky situation for him.
Yep, going to be A-okay there, absolutely. Doggo going to continue to farm, but Supa going to be happy about his position as well. Does have the call, is going to be working in towards that Yuntal, very likely as the first item, and is just going to be continuing to keep him kind of locked under that tower as much as he possibly can. You know, having first move there towards the sides is going to allow MKOI to be a little bit more aggressive, but they're not clearly feeling the pressure yet. They don't seem like they want to posture that aggressively. There is really good scaling on the other side, but Yone, Sivir, Trundle all scale incredibly well also, so I think both teams feel pretty happy with what they've gotten and aren't really feeling any pressure as a result.
Yeah, I think the thing for CFO is they do have a range advantage as the game goes longer, so if they scale evenly, they should be able to gate out MKOI from certain avenues of approach. For MKOI though, they do still have the damage if they can get on top of the enemy, right?
Yeah, exactly, and I feel like they have really good ways to do that, right? You pop the Sivir ult, someone gets Trundle pillared in, all of a sudden there's an Equalizer on your head, there's, you know, an Alistar flashing in, there's the Yone all coming through, so there's a lot of ways to circumvent those issues, but definitely I think it is going to be, you know, front to back advantage for CFO, but MKOI are going to be able to have the opportunity to circumvent that by coming from different angles, by looking for really explosive engages, and by playing through side lane with Jojo, who, you know, has that early Vamp Scepter, is going to be working in towards that Blade of the Rune King. Didn't feel pressured enough to sidestep for, you know, a Null Magic Mantle or anything like that, and so he is going to be kind of in a really good spot right now in that side lane. I just feel like no one is going to be able to answer him that effectively in the 1v1. You're always going to need some sort of coverage for that Azir if he's going to be the one there.
Yeah, really agree with you there. Elioya looking for Driver up towards this top side. Talk about just how powerful he can be. Great pillar. Driver having to flash away will burn that summoner. Honku down towards the bottom side. Not really much going to happen down there, but these two junglers are the two highlight players really for me out of these two teams. Elioya, best jungler in EU. Can't say best in the West because Inspired exists, but definitely the best jungler in EU right now. Domestically, not as dominant as I think he would like to be. And you look on the other side, Junja, domestically the dominant force. I mean,
this guy's
in this
a cheat
region.
code.
Yeah,
like,
he really is.
How do you win in the LCP? Well, you sign Junja, and then the rest kind of handles itself, it feels like. This guy has just been insane. He just wins every single time in the LCP. Has clearly been the best player in the league, just period, point blank. There is not really much of an argument around it. It's not about best jungler, it's about best player, and this guy has just been so dominant, so consistent for the team. As Honku there, forced to use the ulti defensively, this is what I'm talking about. And now next time that Soul Unbound is up, he still has the Fate Sealed, he still has that ultimate, and then Honku is going to have to just back off, or you're going to get constantly chipped down. Jojo's going to be healing back up off that wave, and this is why this is considered a good matchup.
And it's a really good timing as well for MKOI to get that ultimate out, with the Dragon being up, with CFO having already picked up the first Drake of the game. Stopping them from getting the stack is always important. Even if you scale evenly with your opposition, you just don't want to give them opportunities to force you into a fight if you don't want to take it. And by getting the second Drake, you make sure that CFO can't force you into a soul point fight too early. Jojo coming across, the TPs come out from Honku down towards that bottom side. Kaiwing with the Sun, True Shot Barrage going out as well as Junja looks at the smite but can't get it. Honku looking for the flank here as Jojo goes forward, flashes away from CFO. Junja in with the Crescent Guard and they dive onto Elioya, but Elioya heals so much with the Subjugate and survives by flashing out. MKOI on the retreat, but CFO won't find anything more.
MKOI's still going to be pretty happy about that at the end of the day. I mean, that was Honku TPing back, dropping the wave bot lane, running straight to the Dragon, but they were too slow on the setup. MKOI had already knocked it down. There was no ability for Junja to actually get in there for a smite steal. Yes, you get the flash out. Yes, you get the heal out. There is some little advantages there, but at the end of the day, MKOI got what they came for. Going to be really happy about it.
And keeping the game even through this early game as well. Super trading onto Doggo here, who, again, it's the arcane shift of the Ezreal. You can be so much more aggressive than on other AD carries. About a 500 gold lead for CFO through this early game, coming predominantly through Driver on the top side, who still has that 20 CS lead over the Rumble. Mirwin has now finished his Liandry, so maybe that will start to swing a little bit, but Driver going Force of Nature first makes it really hard for Mirwin to get through him.
Yeah, going Force of Nature, not going to be going Kanik Rooker, and I feel like that is much more common in these matchups, so it is interesting. He clearly has his own kind of approach here.
It's really
but now,
movement speed driven. Boost of swiftness, Force of Nature.
I mean, it's very aggressive, right? You know, they are tank items, but it is aggressive. You want to be trying to chase him down, you know, be able to stay on top of him and look for those aggressive trades, but now he is going to be laning up against Jojo, and when Jojo gets the Blade of the Rune King and you're on full MR, not that armor is going to help you that much, but obviously it feels not that great to have spent all this gold.
He will get some movement speed out of the Force of Nature, though, because of the auto attacks from Yone. Yeah, true. You know, he'll be able to run away from the Yone, perhaps, on occasion. For the moment, though, pretty even between these two teams. We see Alvo pathing up towards Honkyu on this top side. Does have the flash. Alvo looking for those gank paths, but great vision control from CFO. Elioya going down towards bot as Driver no longer has a flash of his own. Does have the unstoppable onslaught and can just walk away for now. Junja coming across. Unstoppable onslaught goes in. Elioya's going to get knocked up with the decimating smash. Subject coming out as well, as Elioya has no flash, but look at him bonking down Junja. Crescent Guard comes out. Junja in the middle of his own ultimate will survive. Base seal from Jojo Pun. Junja flashes away. Jojo flashes back, but Driver gets the double.
Nicely done there by CFO. Driver walking out with a double kill as they chase in so deep. Elioya has no flash, so he just decides, you know what, I'm going to try to fight my way out. I'm going to stand. I'm going to get that lethal tempo, I think, stacked up as it looked like he had, and was just whacking away, but couldn't actually quite get the kill. Jojo was going in for that initial trade with a Soul Unbound. That expires. Elioya is still kind of in there briefly by himself in the 1v2, and as a result, does get knocked down. Very close fight, as we're going to see it one more time, as going to jump out of that.
We could see the first 5 frames one more time. After that, it's PG-13. You're not allowed to watch it unless you have an adult supervising
looks
you.
For the pro players, you know, it's just in slow-mo.
Their reaction speeds are just out of this world. It's like the Flash trying to...
No, the reactions are actually really slow. It's just the game's even slower.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Explains why I've never got past Master.
Exactly. You're not playing on the pro mode.
Exactly.
If it was slow-mo like that, actually, that'd probably be even worse.
Yeah, so would I.
I don't think that would help
All
me.
my muscle memory would be out the window.
But it would take like 4 hours to play a game. That would be terrible.
Oh, yeah, true. A 2,500 gold lead for CFO as they picked up the Rift Hold as well, which gave them the objective bounties that they wanted. So they've got those boots upgraded, as you say. Yeah, the top tower being taken by Honkyu and Kaiwing, who are shadowing Mirwin to make sure that he couldn't clear out the wave. MKOI now not as comfortable with this position. A couple of moments ago, 500 gold difference, that's fine. Now you're looking at 2,000 gold in the hole. First items are starting to come out, but the sequence in the bot lane really switched things on for CFO.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it did feel like it was just a really good punish there, you know, from that missing flash and maybe a bit of an overcommitment there, you know, from Elioya. He kind of stand and fought, and Jojo obviously there to try to back him up. Is going to be able to just snap back. We'll see if he can actually chase after him, though.
Jojo's just dead! The Fate Seal, I believe, was still a second off cooldown. Didn't quite come up, and great play from Honkyu's. Solar Flare's going to land onto Alva, who pops the Unbreakable Will, flash away from the Zenith Blade, but still caught by it. Super's now running for the hills as Kaiwing continues to chase him. The Ignite down into the Flash Shield of Daybreak. Wind becomes Lightning. Junja looking for it, but Elioya's killed off Kaiwing. Honkyu coming in from the side as well as Elioya tries to get away. He's going to have to flash. Alvaro forced back to the base as well. Meanwhile, on the bot side, Driver is absolutely decimating Mirwin, even with the Equalizer down. The roar of the Slayer and the Soul Furnace. Driver brings down the axe and gets the solo bolo.
Nicely played by Driver, waiting out the scrap shield there, cancels his auto, so he's not spending that damage into the shield. As soon as it expires, goes forward, knocks him down. They even have the Herald in the mid lane. CFO is getting out of control now in this game one, playing with tempo so incredibly well. Look at top lane also. Honkyu is already ahead. He's going to get a tier 2 solo gold off of this. No one is even moving to respond from MKOI. Instead, they're going to head towards the dragon here, but it's only the second dragon, and CFO is going to get monstrously up in gold.
They're dazed. MKOI are on the ropes right now. They're trying to find anything they can on the map, but CFO are just landing jab after jab. Driver's going to step in here, doesn't have the unstoppable onslaught. Jojo jumps onto Junja. The Dragon secured, base seal as well, even with the Crescent Guard down, Junja's going to die. Kaiwin looking for the flank position here as Honkyu's going to TP in. Mirwin's coming in with his own teleport, but doesn't have the equalizer. Doggo jumps across the wall and has to do arcane shift away. Honkyu looking for that flank, solo player flashed away from. Honkyu needs to be a little bit careful. Decimating Smash hitting the Zenith Blade just short. The Rylai's from Honkyu is going to get the slows down, but MKOI will be able to retreat as 5.
Yeah, Honkyu comes in a little bit too late to really make a big impact in that fight, but he's already on 2 fully completed items, plus the tier 2 boots at 18 minutes. This guy is ridiculously strong. And again, guess what? You get away, but no one's going to be able to answer him bot. It's more solo gold here given over to Honkyu. He is getting ridiculously far ahead. The Soul Laner is making all the difference so far in these early minutes of Game 1. It's a 2.4K gold lead for Driver in the top lane. It is 1.6K now as well for Honkyu in the mid lane. And it's really been the top side for CFO that is making all the difference, as bot lane's just kind of been a farm fest. I mean, Supa's doing fine, but they haven't really been involved in much.
And Honkyu, like, we haven't seen him much on the international stage, but he was 6 when Faker won his first championship and was able to stand tall against him in their series earlier on this week. Now he's showing us just how much impact he can have on this Azir as well, being 1.5K ahead of Jojo Pyun. And that's not from laning itself entirely. Like, Jojo was relatively even in the lane phase, but after that, CFO's movement on the map has just left MKOI rattled.
Yeah, I mean, they've been really good with it, moving around the map. And to me, the kind of turning point of the game really was this bot lane play that they look for. Elyoya going in with Jojo. They try to actually take down Driver, but then Junja shows up, no flash on Elyoya, tries to fight his way out. They both die. Then meanwhile, Honkyu is getting solo gold on the tower top side. That gives over feats. And every time it feels like MKOI has been going for a play, Honkyu has just been getting gold in the side lane, getting further and further ahead. Then he's able to find a solo kill, a punish on a Jojo as his ultimate was just coming off of cooldown, as you had called out, and just building these incremental advantages. Mirwin, I'm pretty concerned for, though. Rumble is not a scaling champion, got very far behind in the 1v1 early, and Driver has just been slamming home that advantage.
Driver's been having a whale of a time on this Scion, living up to his name.
They're not whales, they're oysters.
Okay, look, all the aquatic animals are here. So, Elyoya looking to try and take away this Artican.
Kaiwing.
Doggo jumps in. Kaiwing on a good flank position, and Honkyu dives in immediately with a solo player coming out. Jojo is deceased, and now Alvaro might suffer the same fate. Honkyu looking for that flank, isn't going to go for it. Alvaro has to pop the ultimate, and CFO will get the kill and get the Artican as well.
Yeah, just great vision control, great placement here from Kaiwing, sitting over. It is this ward that really kind of made all the difference up on that top side. He sees Jojo approaching, he's in that side brush, they control the vision, he goes immediately in. Honkyu's there to follow up, no chance for Jojo to get anything done. And MKOI really starting to kind of lose their positioning in this game. Nearly 5,000 gold down now. You lose the Dragon, so now you don't even have that soul win condition kind of in your back pocket.
But I think this is also the reason that we're so high on CFO as a team. They don't just try to fight at every opportunity. It's 8 kills in 21 minutes, and via smart map movements and good lane assignments, they have this 5,000 gold lead. MKOI obviously gifted them a little bit with that bot lane play, but that was more Junja reacting really well, in my eyes, than MKOI making too big of a mistake.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, they are a legitimately really, really good team. People have, as I said, kind of stood up and took notice of that fact, and we're looking for an engage now.
Decimating Smash won't land as Super pops the ultimate to try and escape. Elyoya in from the side isn't going to be able to find too much more, so it's an unstoppable onslaught for an on-the-hunt exchange there. And MKOI getting forced out of their jungle. Junja looking for Jojo Pyun, who's a level behind in this mid lane matchup. And now the more of this jungle you deny, the harder it is for MKOI to get back in the game. You can see Elyoya already about 27 farm behind. Junja has a level advantage. Driver has 2 on that top side. It's going to be so tricky now for MKOI.
And I mean, when you're looking at, just more than the gold, you're looking at the item completions. Look at it. It's 2 items, 2 items, 2 items, 2 items. Over on the other side, only Supa actually has his second item, right? So, it is going to be very difficult right now. I think if you're MKOI, there's no way you should be fighting, until at least you have those second items. So I feel like they should just be giving up this next dragon. It would just be the second one for CFO. So they don't have to worry about soul too much. Try to play through side lanes, give time for Jojo to get that farm. Maybe look for picks in those side lanes, try to make cross-map plays, because objective bounties are spawned. So if CFO sent everyone down to grab this dragon, and you can take the top lane tier 1, grab that bounty for Jojo, that is is a very positive play for MKOI, and they really have to just say, you know what, we've got good wave clear, we have Rumble Ultimate if we need to clear a wave, we've got Sivir to one-shot waves, let's sit back, let's farm, let's try to hope that we can get back into this.
Just need to stall out the game as much as possible if you are MKOI. CFO obviously will have other ideas as Doggo looks for the True Shot Barrage, doesn't land through that spell shield from the Sivir. The Drake's going to be secured by CFO. Second of the game, Chem Soul is the name of the game in this one. And, I mean, will really help with later game fights if you have that extra damage reduction. Especially with something like a Scion, it's going to be so hard to get through him. I think Super really needs that Lord Dominic's Regards at some point if they're going to be able to get their way through this tanky top laner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, realistically, when you're this far behind this early, the way that MKOI would win this game is if it goes really, really long, right? Like, we're looking at, you're hoping then for a 35-minute game. You're hoping that it comes down to Baron, it comes down to Elders, it comes down to those later stage fights, because I don't think MKOI is going to be in a position to take fights earlier on. Honkyu already has a large rod, grabs another Amp Tome, so he's probably going to be working towards Azonius, I think, which makes a lot of sense when you're looking over at a 4 melee team that is trying to dive. I do think Rylai's is always great tech when you are playing against this many melee champions. It makes it really difficult, and then you try to use those tools that you have to commit in, like the Yone ult, and all of a sudden he goes into the stasis. That gets kind of deflected as well, and it becomes very, very difficult then to be able to punish these long-range backliners that you have to deal with, or they will just slowly chip you down.
It's the range disadvantage we talked about from drafts, right? If CFO get ahead, how do you approach as MKOI? Where's your true engage? Is it just a Yone jumping in, Equalizer into a Fate Seal to try and get on towards that backline? And even then...
Great for Alvaro.
Yeah, I mean, Alvaro has been an absolute beast this MSI, but even this might be a little bit of a road too far as he jumps onto Driver, Equalizer onto Doggo as well. There's a trample stun as they try and turn it around, but with the unstoppable onslaught, Driver's able to distract MKOI. Should be able to pick up the Scion here. He puts the shield down in the end. Super still chasing. Will get the shutdown. 800 gold in his back pocket.
There you go. Pray to Alvaro. Comes over the wall there, is able to help turn it around. And that is massive. Not only do you get a big shutdown, it goes onto your Sivir exactly where you want it. And now they can even push forward here. Maybe take the tier 1 off the back of that. And just like that, the gold lead becomes much more manageable. We were talking about 5K. Now it is under 3K here. MKOI going to be feeling so much better now, and Supa is going to have a ton of gold in pocket. He may have a third item here very shortly.
It's just such fortunate timing for MKOI. Obviously, CFO step up a little bit too far on that top side, but look at how much vision there was for CFO on this side of the jungle, and none for MKOI. Baron was about to spawn. If CFO had delayed it a little bit, they could have got the Baron relatively safely. Now they're going to look for it as a bit of a sneak attack. Mirwin coming in from the side, doesn't have a ward on his warding totem, it seems. Alvaro's going to walk forward here as well, and CFO will disengage the big purple worm.
Yeah, they did throw the blue trinket down, so they were able to spot it. CFO not willing to just stand and fight there. Of course, it would be incredibly risky. I like the attempt at a two-man, though. They didn't really lose much by going for it. Maybe a little bit of tempo. You can maybe lose a wave. But hey, risk versus reward, that is very, very good, because Junja and Honkyu can absolutely knock that down had they not been responded to. So they go for it, doesn't work out, but still going to be playing for vision in this area. You can see that they're trying to push up through that top lane and then just maintain control over that topside jungle that you have been highlighting to really make things difficult for MKOI. They're constantly going to be having to try to play through this area, try to reclaim vision, but then you're getting poked by the Azir, poked by the Ezreal every time you walk forward, which can make things really tough.
Doya has to flash the solar flare. Didn't know where the rest of CFO were, and that's, again, the vision control. You have no wards even in the superficial portions of your own jungle. You have to flash, not knowing where the rest of CFO could be. Lord Dominic's Regards now finished for Super on this Sivir. Will still take him a while to work his way through the Scion, who has 1,000 stacks on that Roar of the Slayer.
Really will, but he's the first of 3 completed items in the game. So, you know, got a good 800 gold injection from killing off Driver, and now he becomes a real threat here. You can try to play around Supa, and unless they get Baron, you are never killing a tower in Supa's face. As long as MKOI are around to actually defend him so he can't just get one shot on a dive, he is going to obliterate minion waves. You need to have those Baroned up minions to be able to actually push in his face. So that is going to be difficult. The Honkyu, very close to the Zonias now, has his Seekers completed, so that is going to be a big playmaking tool. And I think we're going to see CFO just continue to show up to objectives, go to that next dragon here in 1 minute, and really look to force MKOI to come and fight before they're ready.
CFO will be regretting giving up one of those early Drakes to MKOI, because this could have been soul point for them, or the soul for them if they had managed to get one of those earlier objectives. For now, though, it will only be Soul Point. MKOI can give it up if they want, although they might be feeling a little bit more confident with 3 items finished on Super. Jojo's on his way to his IE as well. Wonder how far away he is from that, just lacking the pickaxe and the combined gold. 2 items as well for Mirwin on that top side, Bloodletter's Curse and the Leandries. Very slow for the Rumble. He's been put behind quite substantially in this game, but can still do a lot of work on the backline as Honkyu and Driver are going to start up this Baron.
Yeah, and they haven't spotted this yet. Junja is showing on mid lane intentionally, and Kaiwing is trying to zone them out, say, hey, we're not on it, but it is going to be spotted now.
Alvaro goes in, Kaiwing stunned up, and look for the Solar Flare turnaround, good double knock, and Fate Seal's going to land onto 3 as well. The Equalizer comes down, and it's super untouched so far through this fight. Alvaro trying to get onto the back line. It's a double for Mirwin as Driver falls. True Shot Barrage not going to do too much as MKOI is still very healthy. Junja, Honkyu, and Doggo have to try and hold on to this, because otherwise MKOI will be looking at that Baron very greedily.
I think they definitely could be looking at it, but the safer play is obviously the Dragon. Just go down there, move yourself to Soul Point now, so great play there from MKOI. CFO kind of over-forcing around the Baron. They keep going back to it. I like the first attempt. There wasn't much to risk, but this time they were very aggressively forcing it. They were showing Junja mid and having Kaiwing walk into the enemy jungle saying, hey, no one's on the Baron. The support is here. The jungler's there. No one's doing it. But they did kind of get themselves into a position where they're losing a lot of HP to that Baron. Honkyu was already missing 1/3 of his HP. Kaiwing was posturing so aggressively, and he just goes down without being able to do anything, loses the flash. Junja is very isolated, and look at this engage here from Alvaro. Who else but him, flashing in onto the Azir. Yes, he gets scooped away and Honkyu lives, but it's about making sure Honkyu has no time, and they're just doing the Baron again.
It's just rinse and repeat here for CFO. Maybe hoping that the ultimates not being up on MKOI will give them an advantage in the fight. Alvaro chunked out a little bit. Baron down to 10,000. Jojo not here, currently sitting on the blue buff. He's going to teleport across as he secures that for MKOI, but that Baron's down to 6,000 HP. Jojo looking for that base seal, doesn't have it for a while. Alvaro goes in, doesn't get the knock up, and Alvaro's down. Doggo gets the kill. Junja still sitting on that Baron. It's only at 5,000 HP though. Base seal about to come back up in 9 seconds time. Equalizer still available. Subjugate still available. On the hunt, coming back off cooldown as well as Alioya steps up, but Doggo untouched so far. Driver's been subjugated as Jojo Pyun looks for the Scion. Baron secured. Fate Seal onto the back line. The Equalizer doing a little bit of work on the Kaiwing as Junja now dashes in. Crescent Guard coming out. Junja will survive through it. Mirwin knocked up with a decimating smash, and Doggo comes in for his 2nd kill of the fight. It's Honkyu actually secures it in the end. MKOI forced away the Baron for CFO.
I honestly can't believe that even worked. We just saw Junja just stay on the Baron the entire time. He basically is soloing it down in the midst of this fight here. You know, after they'd killed off Alvaro, he just is very determined to be able to knock it down. They do eventually get it. MKOI don't get over there to actually interrupt him. You can see Alvaro was missing his ultimate, and that was such a key part of this fight. As he goes forward, he's just going to go down in a hurry. A great ultimate from Kaiwing over the wall. Did stun up Jojo. He's forced to flash out of there. Alvaro is trying to kind of body block and create some space for his mid laner, but it means that he dies. And then I'm just watching Junja throughout this entire fight. You know, he is staying up in the pit here throughout everything, and Alioya is going and looking for this fight over on a Doggo, but if Alioya is here, you can obviously just finish off the Baron, no problem. I feel like MKOI should have tried to force their way in, push Junja off of the Baron. Instead, they were looking to chase after Doggo, looking to chase after Honkyu, but they're so mobile, and when you're trying to force your way through that tight corridor, Driver is going to create such a problem for you. Kaiwing is going to create such a problem for you, and you're trying to walk through the Azir soldiers with, you know, Rylai's and all of the damage that's coming out. It just felt like it was a bit mismanaged there from MKOI, and as a result, CFO get the Baron, get the kill as well. I mean, look at the poke that Doggo was doing.
Absolutely shredding through MKOI. Alioya trying to trade with Junja. There's a Solar Flare down as Doggo opens up again. Alioya forced down to a 3rd HP. The damage from Honkyu as well across the wall means that CFO can just walk right into this base. MKOI now 5,000 gold behind after only a couple of minutes ago being within 2k. They're going to lose an inhibitor on this bottom side. MKOI will try and defend through mid, but the tier 2 at least is gone as Driver raises it to the ground. A 6,000 gold lead and 4.5k off this Red Bull Baron power play.
Yeah, big swing there after taking that Baron down. Supa, of course, still wave clearing really, really well, working in towards that 3rd item. IE's done now for Jojo as well. Honkyu, though, big concern. He was able to not only finish the zone, he almost has his death cap now. We are still looking at a potential for Soul for MKOI here. So yes, you're down 5.5k, but if you grab Soul, you know, that's 4,000 odd gold worth of stats. So there are still going to be opportunities. We'll see if they can actually find a good way to set up, because when the luxury items start coming through for those teams that are ahead, it gets really, really difficult. You know, my eyes are drawn to things like the GA being done, like the Zhonya's being done, that are going to make it that much more problematic for MKOI in these fights, because now all of a sudden Junja could just throw himself into the backline, just make his job keeping Supa out, and as long as Supa is not actually hitting, well, it's going to be really hard for you to out DPS what Hongq and Doggo are going to be putting out.
Yeah, it's really about whether MKOI can get onto that backline while Supa is distracted. If Jojo can get a good ultimate off into an equalizer or equalizer into ult, you have 3 items on both of those carries. They are still going to do damage to a backline. They're just not that good at working their way through Sion. It's more the Civi's job to do that. Drake up in 50 seconds time. No vision outside of their base for MKOI right now. As Hongq's caught a little bit, base heal comes out. Jojo doesn't connect with it. Snaps back to reality in that top lane.
Trade of ults at the end of the day there, Jojo. I think kind of predicting that Hongq was going to maybe slide back to the side there. Guess is wrong, ends up kind of using the ulti for nothing because he'd already gotten the ulti out. Of course, the other option here for MKOI is you don't even have to go to this dragon because it's not soul for your opponents either. You can just allow it to go to 3-3. You say, you know what, great, you killed Inhibitor, but we're just going to be farming super minions and picking up that gold, trying to wait for those more important objectives, wait to try to come out of your base around that Baron time or potentially even, you know, at Soul or Elder. And we'll see, though, they're looking for an engage. Whoa, nice Baron.
Pillar bounced him back onto the tower. Oh.
That was very strange. I've never seen that interaction. I thought normally you just gotta slam into the pillar and stop, but yeah, he just bounced off that thing like a pinball.
Fast and Furious 2, I believe that one. Was it 3 was Tokyo Drift? I can't remember. One of them.
Hit the Nos and
it's about family, that's all that matters.
Family.
As CFO will make this dragon their family. 6 Drakes taken so far in this game.
Really making it their family if they killed it?
Sometimes, yeah, love hurts. Love hurts, you know?
Not that much, brother. I don't know what your Thanksgivings are like.
I live in Berlin, okay? Anyway, it's still it's a 4,000 gold lead for CFO. MKOI were able to pick up a few bits and pieces here and there to get themselves onto a slightly more even keel. Something we have seen is that in the early game, CFO's map movement, really solid. They played the map really well. But then through the mid game, through like 25 to 35 minutes, they haven't had as much impact on the map. They haven't been able to push through side lanes as much. Part of that is they're just really grouping up to try and play around this Baron, but also means that MKOI don't have too many prongs of attack that they have to defend against.
No, it's absolutely true. And I do think, partially it is that they're grouping up a lot, trying to kind of force on objectives. I also think partially, Yone's a big threat in the side lane, right? And if you do not have your ultimate as Azir, you don't want to be anywhere even near him. And once you use that ultimate, you basically have to base. Every single time, Hongq forces that out, he is not going to stay around because he knows there could be an all-in play. They don't have a good match for Jojo in the side lane, so MKOI are trying to do this kind of 1-4 play where they're trying to make sure, okay, we're not giving up too much on the other side, but we're buying time for Jojo. We're getting this pressure from him out on that map. And you can see, again, he is going to be the one pushing out bot lane, now moving over to try to help with this blue buff. And they're just trying to get as much gold in the pockets of Jojo as they possibly can, working towards that 4th item.
There's also, I think, 2 more waves of super minions on that bot side in terms of when the inhibitor is going to come back up. You can see the Rabadon's now complete for Hongq. So Jojo Pyun can just push out 1, maybe 2 more waves and really deal with any of that side lane threat that could happen while both the teams are posturing around a Baron. That's up now. MKOI setting up towards the bottom side of mid. Jojo looking for a flank position himself, but can't quite find it yet.
Supa finishes BT, so poke not going to be much of an issue for him as long as he
vision.
has. Oh, he's
jumps
looking.
towards Doggo, misses everything, and the Solar Flare connects. Alva's going to try and save his mid lane, who has to flash away. The damage goes down onto Doggo and Drive, and you can see what the Ricochet can do here. Junja goes in with the Crescent Guard, looking for Hongq here. Has that Emperor's Divide, Equalizer back down. Jojo going back in. Alva knocks Hongq back, and he just delivers them. Here you go, CFO. 4 coins on a silver platter. Jojo the last man standing, but Hongq just sweeps them away.
Alvaro betrays the team there. Thought he had a pick onto Hongq, but just ends up delivering him onto the head of Supa. Thank you very much. He'll take the ultimate, and he's going to take game 1 as well.
Some delicious sushi there for the Flying Oysters. Pretty dominant performance all round from the LCP's #1 seed. MKOI left rattled, left battered and bruised, as CFO have shown. They're not here to lose, they're here to play.